What's up, folks? Let's talk about the most requested build I've had in a while, not from viewers but from folks on PoeNinja who see me and message me asking whether or not they should play the build. And I say yes, they should. But now I need a guide for it, so let's bash one of those out real quick. I do recommend the build very heavily. It has the Trickster defenses, it has an incredibly nice consistent damage from the Blast Rain of Trarthus, and it also has just a kind of chill vibe in its playstyle. As far as content that I've been doing with it right now, it is currently my exiled ghost busting build. So that is juiced up exiles with Titanic and Ghost, and then the node to dust those up so that I can use that to use the recombobulator. I've been doing those in T16.5s and 17s on this build, and it's been farming pretty nicely to do that kind of content, alongside of then of course T17 bosses that get absolutely crazy, like a Katarina with all the modifiers just zooming around the zone. I get some close calls here and there, but overall it's pretty comfortable to do the content on it no matter what. Really, outside of, like I said, Xandro popping up and having that resolute technique to smash me in the face, it's kind of just been unkillable. Of course, there are exiles and things that, not exiles, mercenaries, that's what they're called. Now we have two systems. Mercenaries that are still one-shotting almost through anything because they are just crazy in some categories, but outside of that, normal content really doesn't do much for me, and if I wanted to get it to level up to all the way to 100, I probably could, but I usually stop at 97 maximum because it's just, then I start doing stupid content that once you juice up enough, you will die to certain things, especially if you're not paying attention. But overall, it's been pretty chill on the full front of it. So let's get into the full guide for how this thing comes together and its weird gimmicks. This is Blast Rain of Trarthus. Blast Rain of Trarthus on a 97 Trickster with a nice chunk of 9,000 ES, wearing pretty normal gear, no mage bloods, nothing fancy like that. We did the math last night. I would say that the whole build came together for about 25 divines, so that's pretty sensible for me as a full-on build, and one that I can kind of recommend it pretty wholeheartedly. Defense-wise, we got that nice 38,000 evasion when standing around in town, and then 62 when we pop all the things and do all the stuff, so we have a very powerful effect from Ghost Stance for that, as well as the evasion that comes from it. Blast Rain of Trarthus is a skill that looks like that. Now, there's a couple things that we need to talk about when it comes to the things people ask about the most. One, do you need accuracy? Yes. The reason for that is that Blast Rain of Trarthus has an impact area that also inflicts the debuff, that last line on that jewel there. What it does is this circle here that spawns when I click, that is a 1 meter radius that needs accuracy to impact. Now, no matter where you click, your cursor will be that 1 meter radius, and outside of that is the wave. The 1 meter radius is accuracy dependent. It's for you to apply the debuff because the wave spawns on the outside of the 1 meter radius. So if you were to have something like, say, a mercenary sitting on your face where you can't click on it, with the wave, you will not be able to hit it. So you will need accuracy in some form to be able to make sure that you can hit with the center node of the skill. Number two, the area of effect size of the skill cannot be modified. This is a set in stone area of effect, so if you go golems and try to make it bigger, that actually won't do anything. It cannot be modified as far as we can tell. It just has a locked in size modifier, so there's no changing that. So don't worry about area effect if you're going to go that route. Though, what you can do, and I was mistaken on my last video about this, is you can use consecrated effect. Conc effect. For some reason, the skill will take more area damage as a modifier to its linkage. I thought that wasn't the case, but when I tested it last time, it didn't seem to work, but this time, if I do slot it in, it does work. So some of those effects can help in terms of your linkage for your overall setup. Third thing, Ballistas and Mirage Archer. Ballistas, I think, would die and cost you a link. Mirage Archer, I think, would not give you enough power back for what it does, but you're welcome to test it. I didn't need it for clear because I'm just walking around right-clicking right at my feet and just having the wave kind of pulsate out in front of me. That's fine. It's been working great for me. But if you want to try that, if you want more clear from it, by all means, give it a shot. The biggest thing for me is that the debuff does not stack. So if you use Ballistas or Mirage Archer, it is not an ignite. It is a fire damage over time debuff, and those debuffs do not stack with each other. Now this would stack with Fire Trap if you wanted to try to fit that into the build. I didn't really see a need for it. I'm okay with the 7 million DPS I have right now. It's doing Ubers, it's doing 17s, it's all very comfortable. That's fine by me. I'm not going to try to push it further than that. And that's without using any kind of mercenary. That is just plain normal damage for the build as it currently sits. So if you want to use any of those gimmicks, use any of that information, by all means, go ahead. But I didn't bother with it in this one. Let's talk about the reason for the Ascendancy. The reason for the Ascendancy is very simple. Trickster with Spellbreaker, Frenzy Charges, and Polymath is still extremely strong when it comes for defenses. You just get suppression capped, you have immense recharge because you have Wicked Ward, so when you suppress, you pop right back up. You combine that with Ghost Dance, you're good to go because you have so much evasion, and Frenzy Charges is a nice addition to the build for the damage because we get those longer charges and all that stuff going. And then also, of course, Polymath's recovery is still very strong, and the 2% more damage is still very strong as well. So that's why I went Trickster, though a Golemist version of this build probably is good as well, and it's something that people can definitely check out if they're interested in doing so. Now, how do we go about making the gear, and what is the gear? What's special about it? First things first, this is the Archon's tools. This is the belt that when you use Skitterbots, they give you also your effect. So these are 71% increased non-damaging elements inflicted by Skitterbots, and one of those extra ones is the Scorch effect that you get on the third Skitterbot. So you get 24, 37, and 22 Scorch, Shock, and Chill, respectively. Very good. The reason I don't get affected by mine is because I'm also running Purity of Elements. I thought that was just an easy way of doing it because the belt already comes with 20 mana reservation efficiency of skills, and I qualityed it up for another 4% just to fit in a couple more auras. So that's why you don't see me getting affected by it, is I'm running Purity of Elements with the Summon Skitterbots and the belt combo. That's something that gets asked about quite a lot with the build. As far as the rest of the things go, the bow, very simple. This is a +1 socketed gems, damage over time, elemental damage with attacks bow. As I talked about in the previous video, get Thicket Bows, item level 86, roll them with alterations and augmentations till you get one that has an elemental damage with attacks roll, and another one that has a damage over time roll. Then slap him into the old recombobulator over here. Either use the old school one or the new school one, depending on how you want to do it. I think the old school one probably has better odds if you have isolated 1-in-1 and then you just put, like, you know, crafted one mod on there that they share. Something, you know, if you could really isolate it that way. But if you're lazy, you can use the new school one, and you have about an 18% chance, I believe, to make those smash together. And once you have it, multi-mod it if you want to go all the way, or just craft on. Can have 3 crafted modifiers, cannot roll attack mods, exalt it, you'll get +1 socketed gems, and then you can leave it like that. Remove the crafts and put on +2 socketed supports, and then at the end, if you want to, you can re-add on can have 3 crafted modifiers, put on fire damage over time, +2 socketed supports, and that's how you get the full bow. So kind of a step-by-step way of going about it, depending on how much currency you have. The bow in total cost me about 6 divines, with the meta mods costing most of that currency. For the rest of the gear, we have Polaric Devastation, just because we have Ash. Now, once again, this does not ignite, so you need some way to ignite. In my case, what I'm doing here is I have a Mana Forged Arrows attached to a Frenzy, a Burning Arrow, and a Combustion. So these are firing off pretty much all the time. Those are the 2 lines you see there, targeting mobs, and they have a pretty good chance to ignite. One of the 2 will ignite. This has a 50% chance, and this is my Frenzy generator as well as my Ignite generator, so this combined has a pretty dang good chance of igniting, and then of course Combustion on top of that, so that they get a little bit of fire resist minus on their stats from that. So that is how I'm using the Polaric Devastation. You can go with 2 rings that will give you more elemental damage with attacks, as well as going for things like these, where it's maximum energy shield, all resistances, and then a big wed roll, because these are from the Mist of Calandra, along with an evasion roll, so that you can then make use of this node here. That is the increased maximum energy shield if both equipped have explicit evasion modifier. I ended up dropping that because Polaric was just a little bit more damage, and I ended up getting a really good deal on this one, which is 88 accuracy, 32 evasion, 94, and 90 wed. Very nice ring for me. Only cost a divine because not many people looking for this kind of stuff, so you can snipe prices pretty well here and there. So good pickup on there. That's why I'm running Polaric. That's why I'm running this, and that's why I'm not running that Ascendancy, if you're curious about that. Amulet, it's going to be a +3. Blast Range skill gems, very nice, very easy to pick up in there. Get a Replica Dragon's Frang's Flight, slap it in there. For me, the Reservation Efficiency probably ends up being the most valuable stat on there, along with attribute requirements, because attribute requirements are a little tight for some of the things like strength for the build, so do look out for a decent one depending on what you're going to be running for, and then the Anoint Sovereignty, just to be able to fit in this whole slew of curse auras that we got going on here, because we are still pretty close. We have 77 mana just to fit all that in, and we are picking up this cluster here, the mana reservation cluster here, and then of course Anointing Sovereignty over here. So it's quite a lot in terms of getting all the auras in, and you really don't have to go that hard on it, but if you want to, this is what's making that possible. A 25 increased effect small reservation effect cluster sitting here nice and pretty in the corner. I just needed it for the reservation efficiency, but of course if you want to pick up one, this is kind of what you need, alongside of I have an Enlighten 3. Self-made it, found it from a lab, crafted it up, valed it, didn't get an Enlighten 4, kept an Enlighten 3. Build works just fine, even with unbound elements being attached to summon skitterbots, which boost that up in terms of its reservation. So this is fine. You could get away with this just fine. I would recommend going for the item level 83 one when it comes to this one, if you have the Enlighten 3, because the item level 84s were like 2 divine. This one cost me 10C to buy, and then I just literally crafted it for increased effect and just left it at that, but I happened to also land energy shield on it, so your mileage will vary depending on what's on the market, but by all means do as you wish with that. Worked out just fine for me. The other oddity on the skill tree is this one: 10% reduced attributes but 40% increased global defenses from the rune graft of the fortress. Just slapped it on here. It's very good. It's not going to show up in the pub, but it should be in the configurations, so just so you know, that's there. Now, I remembered it there, so I figured I would mention it. Back to the gear. Bow is done. We got the rings, we got the amulet. Let's go down the quiver. The quiver, same kind of deal as the bow as to how I made it. I took a increased damage with a bow attack skills, item level 86 quiver base. The reason I'm using higher item level bases for the recombobulation is because the higher the item level base, if one of the modifiers requires a high item level, or if both items are high item level, it seems to give you a better percentage. So you want to use high item level bases. In my case, I used 86s. So increased damage with bow skills, just normal quivers, not hunter quivers, just normal. And then combine that with damage over time multiplier with attack skills, and you get the base quiver that I started with, just those 2 lines. From there, you craft on increased weapon elemental damage with attacks, which is all you really need. That 3 line is what I was going for. However, I was feeling frisky. I had a Hunter's Exalted Orb, and I smashed this one, hoping to get fire damage over time, which is a possibility, and that would let you then have fire damage over time over there as well, which would be really kind of cool, but it just didn't happen this time, and I didn't want to recraft the Quiver again, so I stuck with this one. That's why it looks kind of like a mess. The pub has a clean one in it without fire damage over time. So, if you have a Quiver that has fire damage over time on it, with the rest of the rolls, in that case, it looks like mathematically a Widow Hail is the equivalent of this bow. So if you want to put your eggs in the basket of trying to get that quiver, you could then use a Widow Hail in place of this bow, and you'd get the same level of scaling that you do in this setup. So it really depends on how you want to go about it. Just know that the quiver is going to have to be strong enough to compensate for the bow, because the plus to levels is huge for a skill like this, where the base damage for the fire damage over time is such a large factor in the build. Just keep that in mind. So if you're going for Widow Hail, you're going to need a big quiver. The rest of the gear is pretty much bog standard Trickster gear. Here we have some Fizz taken as Chaos because we are CI, why not? Works well for the build. We have the Endurance charges, so we have a little bit more tank coming in from that slowly, and because we have such a large charge time, that works out for me. I landed this one with an Exalted Orb, which is kind of crazy. I got the Hybrid, Suppress, and Fire Resist, and I exalted on the last tier 2. So not a perfect one, T1, T2, tier 2, and Suppress, but very good for me. It does what I need it to do. I'm very happy with it, and it probably has some value to it. But you're looking for not specifically this, because the rest of your stats combined is what you're really looking for. You just need 20-ish suppression somewhere alongside of the rest of your things. So for the gloves, I got 10% fractured on there, plus 20% there, and that covers all the bases. If you get it somewhere else, then you can do other things as well. Within the build, I forgot exactly how much suppression I'm overcapped on right now. I'm 12 over. So one of your items doesn't need it if you have it on the chest piece, but if you don't have it on the chest piece, then you might need a lower roll on the chest piece, like a 10 or something like that, and you'd still be fine. So it really depends. You just got to kind of look at the numbers, look at where you are, get your suppression pieces from these 3. And the reason for that is because your helmet is a mana reservation efficiency helmet with a mana reservation efficiency implicit. So you really don't want to go too hard on this because it gets really expensive to get good helmets and have all that reservation efficiency if you're trying to fit in all of these orders. I just spammed essences until I got something that worked. This one was a 472, which is fine by me in terms of that, and then crafted on the mana reservation efficiency to a level that I needed it to be able to fit in the auras. And that's just basically look at your attack, how much it costs, look at your curses, how much do they cost. And the way that I have solved mana, because of this setup, and I don't have clarity in this build, is I simply just picked up these nodes here and I just use a mana flask. I don't really mind pressing this once every 7 seconds. It's not that big of a deal, and even though, you know, you could walk around kind of doing this just fine, and then Trickster in mapping will pop your mana back up. In a boss fight, it's nice to have this. It's nice to have the bleed removal, so I just use that so that I can just kind of hold the button down and not really worry about it. So that's the reason you don't see clarity in this, but you see the mana being solved by that way. And we kind of can't fit clarity in anymore because we have about as much mana reservation efficiency as we can. Though maybe Enlighten 4 and a better small cluster would allow us to fit in clarity, and then you could maybe drop the mana flask, and that would help you because you do have a couple sockets left over where you could slot that in. Let's say clarity there, Enlighten 3 there, this higher level, put in clarity. You might be able to do that. You might be able to fit it in and have yourself an okay time with that. Just something to consider when you get there. The rest of the stuff, we got fire exposure on hit, once again, because these are hitting. The middle of this is hitting, so you are able to actually do fire exposure on hit. And unique enemies, fire damage over time multiplier, just the stronger version of the fire damage over time multiplier allowed on the implicits. Very good roll for that, and most of the time where you need that damage is going to be on uniques, especially in my case when I'm farming things like exiles and bosses. Uniques are the go-to there. Very basically crafted with just intelligence essences on there just to get a bit more energy shield, and as well as just kind of whatever I needed on the glove to fill out the rest of my resistances. I'm not like mega overcapped by any stretch of the imagination when it comes to elemental weakness or anything like that, but it's good enough for me and it works the way that I want it to. Same with the boots, suppression, intelligence, movement speed, and then a little bit of rolls. These are probably the weakest part of my gear. I just needed a bit more strength, so I slapped that on there as well as a craft. I think I just bought these straight up for not that much money from somebody to cover off the rest of my stat requirements and stuff like that. So overall, pretty simple, straightforward there. Well, like I said, there's the Mana Forge arrow. This is just inspiration, flammability, elemental weakness, and an Arcanist brand, just so that I can put the brand down, and that's going to take care of both of my curses. I don't really want to deal with it in any other way, so I have that to take care of that. And because we have the exposure from there, we don't need something like Wave of Conviction, because we're then just slapping on this one here for at least 18 affected resistances, so that works for me. Scales that one up, and you don't have to go for a higher roll. You can just go with a very small roll there. Very nice and simple. The rest of the stuff, like I said, is discipline. We got malevolence, grace, purity of elements, summon skitter bots, bound to that unwakened unbound. So that is just giving us a stronger version of the belt on top of everything. That's why the stats of the belt are as high as they are, is because we're able to boost it with this. And if I leveled this up a little bit more, we'd even get higher stats on that. So that works very well for me. Blast Rain of Trarthus, of course, is linked to a bunch of things that are awakened, because +2 socketed support gems, and then the level ups from those is really powerful. So burning damage +1, very easy, gives it levels. Swift Affliction, just if you want to have a more long-term damage amount, you can do Conk Effect, you could do Efficacy, you could do a lot of other things in this place. I don't really mind taking the duration of the skill gem down to 3 seconds from its 4 seconds, 5 seconds duration that it normally is with the scaling. So I'm running Swift Affliction as a result of that. Your mileage may vary, you may not want to do this. I don't really mind it at all. Awaken Elemental Focus, +1 skill levels, and once again, it's not an ignite. You don't have to ignite with it, it's a debuff, so Elemental Focus with supports is fine for this, so definitely slot that in there. +1 level is huge once again. Empower, I have an Empower 4. I used an Empower 3 for a long time. Empower 4 was the last upgrade I bought for the build. Just once again, more levels. We are going above level 30 in terms of scaling, but it's overall going to be just perfectly fine with that. You don't really have to worry about that. Every level still helps a lot because the skill doesn't have that many avenues of scaling. It does have the modifiers of projectile damage applied to its damage over time, but it's actually kind of hard to get projectile damage somewhere within the build. Because it doesn't work as well as, you know, there's no easy way to pick it up, essentially. And then we have elemental damage with attack supports, and this is the important part where the increased elemental damage with attack skills. So attack skills is huge for the build in general. Attack skills, bow skills, it always has to be something skills for it to affect this gem. Not all things will affect it, so just be careful on how kind of what you're picking up and where. Something like precise techniques, I believe, does not affect it at all, so just make sure that, you know, you're not picking up or going to things that are going to help you in different ways. Elemental Overload doesn't help it because you can't actually do anything with hits and elements. It's a debuff. Stuff like that, keep it in mind when you're going through and building something like that for this build. As for the tree, originally I didn't come down here. I was going through here, grabbing a bunch of the elemental stuff here, and then went up this way, and then filled out all the way to here until I was able to get my clusters in. Nowadays, the clusters are a lot cheaper, so you probably could just go this route and go into clusters if you have a little bit of currency. The clusters are pretty simple. They're just disorienting display, prismatic heart, and smoky remains. So we got fire damage, elemental damage, bit of blind helps with that stuff, and then prismatic heart for the resistances and elemental damage as well. Same thing over here, exact same one for those, and then we just slapped on a vial reinvigoration and a smoky remains in there, just to get a little bit more energy shield and damage over time. And the big thing is we are running an adorned here, a 75% for me. This was 4 divines at the time that I bought it at, and then I just bought a bunch of these and corrupted them myself. 8 fire damage and 8 increased energy shield for each of them. Some of them are 8 and 6s, some of them I believe are 8s, 8s, this one's an 8-7. You know, you get the idea. These are really powerful for the build when you don't have a lot of ways to get these 2 stat scales on this side of the tree for cheap. So using this version, these are like 5 to 10C a piece, 40C for the 8-8s, and then adorned for divine. Just check out the wiki, check your breakpoints on the adorned, see what you need, slap that in there, and you should be good to go for that. Overall, though, that's pretty much covers most of the build. Most of the tree is pretty self-explanatory. We got the reservations, mana. We need the accuracy. We need some more reservations. Suppress is good stuff. Frenzies is good stuff. And then just damage over time, ignite stuff. Or this one for, because we have the combustion going on here. For this, more reservations, double curses so that we can run both flammability and elemental weakness, clusters, and then just int because, I don't know, more intelligence is good because we need to go to Wicked Ward anyway. Overall, very straightforward, very simple setup to put together. It has been really fun to play. Flask just doing the Flask stuff of phasing and evasion, movement, and mana. And yeah, I can actually recommend this build pretty well in terms of does it replace Frostblades of Katabasis, cold damage over time for me? Yes and no. Frostblades did more damage, but it wasn't as consistent because it's a damage on the ground rather than a debuff. So depending on how you're going, what you're doing with it, may depend on how you go about wanting to belly, which one you want to play. That one uses a Cane of Colmac, which is a lot harder to come by than this. All the gear on this is pretty bog standard, and you can make it yourself for not too much effort. Most of the stuff that, like my boots and my gloves, I just bought. This one was fossil spam until I got something interesting. And because you have Eldritch implicits and stuff like that on these, you can of course craft them a little bit easier, modifying certain things, annulling certain things. If you get something that's close that could work for you, then you can go that route. But overall, highly recommend the build for just a chill playstyle that does a decent amount of damage. And if you have any questions, do put them in the comments below. That pretty much wraps up everything I need to talk about on the build. It's been good. I recommend it. And that's it. That's all there is to it. Thanks so much for watching. Put the questions below. Check out the streams. Subscribe. All that dang stuff that YouTube wants you to do. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.